Here are 2 comments that I posted on my most recent video. Don't post comments while refusing replies. And there are several things wrong with your comment. The Taliban are not the same as al-qaeda. Seems like you are confusing the two. If you're going to call the Taliban terrorists, then call the United States terrorists, because the Taliban were the government of Afghanistan at the time the United States illegally attacked them in a war of aggression. No, just because a government doesn't extradite someone you demand them to, doesn't mean you have the right to attack the country and start a war to overthrow that government. That's freaking crazy. By that logic, Cuba or Venezuela, for example, have a right to attack and try to overthrow the government of the United States because the U.S. refuses to extradite known terrorists it is harboring.
One of the world's leading terrorists is Luis Posada, who was involved in blowing up a Cubana airliner, which killed 73 people, and lots of other terrorist acts. He's sitting happily in Miami. His colleague, Orlando Bosch, also a major terrorist, happily there. Cuba and Venezuela are trying to extradite them, but, fat chance.
There is nothing terrorist about capturing an enemy soldier that is part of a force that has illegally invaded your country. What do you want the Taliban to do? Who put the notion in your head that prisoner swaps were wrong? And as Gameplay Bangladesh points out, the Taliban did offer to hand over bin Laden to the U.S. with conditions civilized countries would find reasonable and honorable to meet, provide evidence. But the U.S. is controlled by unreasonable and dishonorable people who violate the rights of people here and abroad. They also make a good point about how the Taliban was offering to hand over bin Laden before 9/11, and again on reasonable conditions. You can see White House spokesman Ari Fleischer being questioned about that, well before 9/11.
Yes.
Ari, according to India Globe, the Taliban in Afghanistan, they have offered that they are ready to hand over Osama bin Laden to Saudi Arabia if United States drops its sanctions and they have some kind of deal that they want to make with the United States. So you have any comments?
Let me take that and get back to you on that.
But the Bush administration had other priorities, as opposed to keeping the American people safe. And here's my response to someone that was making the argument that Obama was motivated by morality. I wrote that I wouldn't assume Obama was motivated by morality when he took the action he did. I also wouldn't assume that Obama is telling the truth about saving someone's life, because we don't have proof. All we have is a claim made by Obama. And we really don't know if the White House claim about U.S. Army Sergeant Bowe Bergdahl's health is true, or if the Taliban was really threatening to kill him. Remember, Obama has lied in the past. Here's an example of Obama's "I've got to take this action before it's too late" excuse. The White House claimed that Gaddafi had threatened to massacre the people of Benghazi with no mercy. But the New York Times reported that Gaddafi's threat was directed at rebel fighters, not civilians, and that Gaddafi promised amnesty for those who throw their weapons away. Gaddafi also offered to allow rebel fighters to escape to Egypt if they preferred not to fight to the death. Yet President Obama warned of imminent genocide. So keep that in mind. And also, the claims made about Syria were not true. I find it really hard to believe that Obama took the action he did because of morality. If he was moral, he wouldn't have continued and expanded President Bush's immoral foreign policies. So how do you square that with claims of morality? And he was extremely eager to bomb Syria when he had no right to as a U.S. president. He didn't need to act like it was his decision to bomb, because it wasn't. In the United States system, a U.S. president doesn't have the right to start a war. He has shown a pattern of contempt for the U.S. Constitution's restrictions on presidential power. And that is what I was trying to communicate with the clip at the end of this video, where he arrogantly declared that he wasn't going to give a straight answer whether he was going to bomb Syria.
And I still haven't heard a direct response to Brianna's question. If Congress fails to authorize this, will you go forward with an attack on Syria?
Right, and you're not getting a direct response.
Think about retrofitting Voice of America through legislation to mandate establishing a public institution for all Americans. And you can share this video with other people using the YouTube tools below.